Hello, everyone watching us live today, Thursday, the 23rd of July. I'm here today with a special guest for another Ask Me Anything session with growth hackers. Our guest today is Guilherme Gomes. He's an offer development at Volvo Cars, and Volvo Cars is part of the Volvo Group, a Swedish multinational manufacturing company headquartered in Gothenburg. Guilherme is talking to us today from Stockholm, actually. And why its core activity for the company is the production, distribution, and sale of trucks, buses, and construction equipment. Volvo also supplies marine and industrial drive systems and financial services. And Guilherme is here to tell us a little bit about how they work with the growth methodology and what's news with the company, what's news with his career as well, which is super interesting. Before coming live, we're just discussing that Guilherme has lived in many parts of the globe. First in Brazil, he was born in the northeast of Brazil, and I want to kick off with that, Guilherme. First, welcome here. It's a pleasure to have you in our AMA session. We have tons of questions to ask you from our community, but I will start with one of my own. So how is it that your career got you into traveling all over the globe, being born in the capital of Brazil, Brasilia, and then living in the Northeast, and then working in the South, to Europe, and to working in Volvo Cars in Sweden? How was everything through your working and life and your career? And also, if you can spoil us a little bit on what's next for you.
Absolutely. So, hi everyone. Amazing to be here tonight with you all, this morning, depending on where in the world you are. I've been following the community for quite a long time, so it's very exciting to be able to actually share also a little bit of my story. And as I said, Emilia, it's a trajectory of like many changes through my life. So I kind of connect that to growth a little bit. So I'm come from a background. I'm from Brazil, so I'm native from Brazil. My father was working with the government, so I've been traveling through Brazil through my whole life a little bit. But I always had a lot of curiosity from living abroad and seeing what's happening in the other side of the world. I think when you live in Brazil, it's such a big country that you tend to see everything internally. But I was always like very curious about what was going on outside there. So I have been in Brazil studying different things. So I started studying mechanical engineering. I wanted to be an astronaut, so I figured out that might be one step there. And then it was a terrible idea. I really didn't like engineering that much. So I did like 3 years and I decided to quit and move to journalism. That was absolutely the opposite side. I realized that I really loved communication and people and behavior and like more the social thing, while the engineering part was a little bit too how to say, like in Brazil, engineering is quite different from what it is in the US and in Sweden, at least I can say. It's very more down to the production kind of thinking and not the creative kind of thinking. So for me, it was not so exciting. And I felt like, okay, with the journalism. But then while doing journalism, I ended up moving to another city and then got a job. And then there, the only university that I had the opportunity to take in that city, which is called Blumenau, was what we call in Brazil, it's a quite weird name. So it's called Publicidade and Propaganda. So propaganda, you learn after, when you go away from Brazil, it's not a word that you kind of use openly, but in Brazil we call the university like that, like advertisement and propaganda. And that's what I was studying. And it's a mix of media, marketing, business. It's quite broad and quite T-shaped, if you would see the growth perspective. And that is how it's set up in Brazil. So through the university, I got an opportunity to come to Sweden, and then I jumped to Sweden. And then in Sweden, I ended up finishing my education here in business marketing. And then I tried to stay in Sweden because there is a very interesting thing in between that. The reason I moved to Sweden, besides dedication, and why I want to stay in Sweden, is actually because I wanted to be a rock star. So I wanted to record music here. Yeah. And I actually ended up getting a record deal in Sweden. So I stayed for 1 more year to record an album, which never worked out. I realized I kind of failed in that experiment. We recorded, I think, 2 or 3 songs. It was nice, a nice experiment, nice experience. But I realized quite soon that I need to get a job. it would not be the way I was expecting.
It did not work, but it's in your learning center now.
It was a great learning, and it opened up so many
Yeah.
opportunities, and I met so many great people. So I can never complain. So it had its function, right? But then it was time to move on. And I was very fortunate to actually there in Gothenburg. And then my visa was expiring, and I only had 3 months to find something. So I was not a student anymore. So as a student, after you finish education in Sweden, you have 3 months to find something. Otherwise, you need to move back to your country. So I was like, well, I have to find something. And then I was lucky enough to actually fortunate enough to find a startup that was just starting. It was a dating startup in Sweden. That was targeting Brazil. So they needed a Brazilian to actually do the whole marketing, communication, customer support, everything from scratch. And that's how I started. So I started in Sweden, then doing startups. I had no clue about anything in startups. I was really into the music universe and really into the marketing kind of thinking. And I didn't know what it was CPM, CPC, and all those things. So I had to learn from scratch. And that was really exciting because actually at that time, very few people knew anything about that era, right? So it was a completely new era. I'm talking about 2013. So there was no mobile ads, for instance, like your iPhone was just new. And so, but then we were a kind of mobile first company. So we were one of the first to actually do Facebook ads for mobile. We were testing Twitter ads for mobile and feeding back Twitter because we had quite a big budget and many other things. So moving forward, that was the first startup. Then I went to another one here in Gothenburg, with football, where I was doing monetization and sales. And then after, I went to another one in Stockholm with music, where we were doing like support independent musicians. So it was nearby my passion for music. And then it pops up Volvo in my life, and Volvo has been like, if you are from Sweden, Volvo is kind of institution to you, right? Like it's a company that exists for more than 90 years, and there's a lot of respect because it is a brand that has always been connected to purpose, and is really like from the start. It's not something that the brand is trying to push it now. No, it has been from the start. So it's kind of in the DNA of the brand. So for me, it was very, very exciting.
Quite of a challenge to bring your startup background and then move into this huge, respected corporation and try to change things. Growth hackers like yourself, growth professionals like ourselves, we are always trying to move the needle, always trying to change things. And how was that for you in the beginning?
It was crazy tricky. Like it's almost like I came from another planet because you take for granted so many things when you're being working startups. And mainly connected to data, right? Because and that's one of the things that I think is crucial for the whole talk when you're going to talk about growth here today. It's like there is so much talk and comments about the growth out there, and you go online and you read those things, fantastic things, and people doing great stuff, and then if you're working in a company that is a little bit more like in the how to say traditional business and not in the tech world yet, maybe you don't even have Google Analytics to see your data, to understand your customer behavior online. And maybe you don't have a colleague to understand what is that. And you need to start really from the scratch. But then, so when I came in, I realized that there were so many things that were still kind of being built upon. It was like, wow. Then I kind of could understand, a completely different universe. And I was a little bit an outsider. So since then, it has been a great learning curve for me, because then I've learned a lot of other things also. And I kind of learned also to challenge a bit what we call, how do they say, like growth and performance marketing. And there are so many words and things that we are saying nowadays. But actually, when you go to the old companies, you realize that those things has been there in a way or another. Like maybe we're giving new words to things that already exist, and we're improving those things, of course. But we should have a lot of respect also for those old things that has been there, that actually has been working for almost 100 years. So that's part of my learning so far.
Yeah, it's not like how we erase the past, how you take all of this, all of this history and turn into something that will be ready for the next generations. And for sure, the next 90 years, right? The past 90 years have been quite good, but how about the next ones? And definitely, I believe the growth methodology has the impact that can build the sustainable growth for the future. And I want to take just that cue over there to bring in the first question from our community. The question comes from Janakiran Pulipati, and Janakiran asks, what is a moonshot in Volvo, such a big corporation? So exactly what we were talking about. He says, usually big corporations have incremental features or innovations. And how did you arrive at your moonshot problem? He's curious, how did you finalize on a particular problem? How you figure out what a problem looked like?
Yes, well, great question. So I will start from the really beginning for the people who might not be following the whole question. As like, so the moonshot, right? So when I joined Volvo, the first department that I joined, so it's my third department now, but the first one that I joined was the innovation department, and we were what we called internally the moonshot department inside Volvo. So what is a moonshot? A moonshot is an innovation. I mean, there are many definitions. If you Google that, you're going to find crazy amount of stuff. But for us, a moonshot inside Volvo, which is his question, was like it's based on McKinsey's framework, where they have innovation in 3 setups. So you have like age 1, kind of the incremental business. So you have, it's very much what product teams are doing, right? So you have a product team who does, I don't know, let's say, since we're a car company, so you're doing the wheel, then you're going to do maybe a better wheel. You know, like that's the Horizon 1 innovation. So it's kind of incremental to the existing business. Then you have the adjacent innovation, which is Horizon 2. And that one would be kind of, you're going to do now, like, I don't know, maybe something connected to the wheel. There's a new business, kind of, but it's connected to your existing business. And then you have the Horizon 3, which is kind of disruptive. It's kind of a new business, a completely new area for you. Is still connected to your core because you have those resources, right? So if you are a car company, probably you have a lot of resources there that you could actually use in different ways, but you are not jumping totally out in the blue, but it's something nearby you. So if you think about Microsoft, for instance, that nowadays has Xbox, it's quite interesting to think as an example. Like now we take for granted that everything is the same, but it's at the time maybe was quite far out. But now they have video games and they have like a computer
even
software.
For, let's say, Amazon launching AWS, the cloud computing service. Yeah,
absolutely. And nowadays, like, just to complement to that, like Google is how to say the king of moonshots, right? So they have the Google X, what they call, or nowadays I don't remember how they call themselves nowadays, but like it's pretty much Waymo is coming from that and many other ideas and become new companies. So that's how it started in Volvo. So it was an experiment, actually. It is an experiment, and it's started like just like when I joined, so it was 2018. So I had the opportunity to actually join and also help to set up everything. So pretty much for us, what that meant was like, I mean, there's so many things happening in the car industry right now, right? It's like, imagine yourself that you were Sony Music in 10 years ago, before before Spotify exists, and people are still figuring out should invest money in CDs, should we go back to vinyls, should we try this new technology, and etc. I think car industry is in that place right now. So for us in the moonshot department, it's pretty much trying to understand, like, okay, 5 or 10 years ahead, what are the opportunities, what are the frictions that might come? We know some things, but a lot of things we don't know. And then we try to build scenarios with that. And then we try to understand, okay, if this happens, then there is an opportunity here, maybe. And then we run experiments to try to verify if that those opportunities will become reality or not.
Yeah, I don't know if you can get into details, but one example would be how people might not be using as much cars of their own, but actually renting more or using apps to drive around with cars they can use in a different way. Instead of owning a car or leasing a car, they could be renting a car, and that's what is happening right now also in the real estate industry. The new generations are buying less and less. Of course, there's tied to the not only a trend in terms of consumption, but also the ability for people to get their own houses. But with cars, I think the need is mostly within getting from point A to point B than actually owning something, right, to get to point A to point B. So is that something that you would be experimenting around?
Yes, that's a fantastic example, actually. I mean, like new business models are, I mean, digitalization is giving us these new business models. And then when you put this electrification on top, and then you have, let's say, scooters going on around the streets right now. And the adoption rate was like insanely high. Like, you know, like I was seeing a graph, I remember seeing, now I don't remember my mind, but like probably micromobility.com is, or .io is a great website where you can see all the trends happening in micromobility, and it's fantastic. So you really understand, okay, that use case actually is being, maybe something's happening here, but then you try to understand those trends, and you can. There is a lot of hype always in all of those things when we see new technologies coming out, right? So you're gonna see, like, you have a lot of companies who has been trying to actually do a carpool or like a ride share, and they actually bankrupt. So they couldn't actually scale and keep their business. Even big ride companies are still not profitable. So it's quite tricky to understand what will actually be the future in 5-10 years from now. So yeah, but it's definitely part of that, and other things also. I think it gets very exciting when you start seeing how this whole thing, how you bundle or unbundle what we know is the car nowadays. You know, like, and then you can start seeing a lot of use cases moving here, but also coming here, and it's I wish I could say more specific things, but of course,
I know. I understand, and it's. I think it's very, very exciting, and the take that you get, even from all of the data you have in house, these years and decades of data, and all the trends, and when you face the market and you see the differences, and I mean, tons of ideas must come to your team, and the thrill to experiment on that must be really exciting. I want to bring another question in from our community. Absolutely. It goes around metrics too. It comes from Daniel Foster, and Daniel asks, what are your views on the utility of NPS, both as an internal metric and a competitive benchmark? Have you seen a tight correlation of NPS to growth in your experiences, or under certain circumstances? Do you use NPS? Is it a metric that you look to when you're trying to experiment around customer satisfaction, or something around customer usage? Is it in your daily activities to look into the NPS in your dashboard?
Absolutely. So right now in Volvo, I'm part of a team that's called offer development within Care by Volvo, and Care by Volvo is a subscription service for cars. So people it's kind of a lease, but in a way better way. So it's like you subscribe to a car, it's flexible, so you can actually return the car. With a lease, you have a fixed term, that's like 2 years or 3 years, let's say, and this now you can return with a car with nowadays within 3 months. So you just notify us, and then you can return. With that comes, it's fantastic value proposition for customers, of course, because we have this flexibility. But at the same time, we need to guarantee that we actually have a fantastic killer product offering, because if the customers are not satisfied, then they will not stay for 3 years due to contracts. They will actually return. So NPS became king for us, and I think for yes, and I mean, satisfaction in general for our customers has always been, I think for every big company, has always been something that everybody has been looking to in a way or another. But when you have this kind of services, it becomes crucial. And it directly translates to retention, right? So that's how we see that. So and then of course referral on top of that. So yeah, if you're doing great, of course, people tend to refer. If we're not doing that great, then probably retention will go very low.
That service that you are providing, it looks very much, I imagine your dashboard to be very close to what a SaaS business dashboard is. If your game is the lifetime value, it must be pretty similar. Although it's it is a subscription product. It is not a software, but it must look very much like that, right?
I think you're absolutely right, and that is a challenge within our company, I can tell you, because like it's so easy for us. For instance, like there are very small things that is in the mindset that we have to adjust. And I say we is like we as an organization where now we decided to actually have subscriptions as a service. So for instance, we still sometimes refer to a new subscriber as, oh, we have sold a new car. It's like, no, wait, we're not selling cars here. We're actually selling subscriptions. We actually a service provider. But sometimes it's so easy to forget that this whole lifetime perspective, this whole usage period, like suddenly those cars that are out there that our customers subscribe from us, they are actually how do I say, like mobility devices that we own, and their assets are around the city. So there are so many new possibilities with this, and when they are getting connected. Also, it's very exciting to see what we can do of new services and increase the value to our customers. So wow. I think it's very exciting. But yes, but connected to the NPS, the utility of that, yes, for sure. We see that directly in retention, referral. And then for your company, Daniel, so I mean, if your company is a monopoly, maybe you don't need to care at all for NPS because it's like a tax service, right? Like you can have the worst monopoly, I'll say service, but if you have a monopoly, people need your service, they will have to come. So, but don't take this as an example or a suggestion, but treat people well. But of course, if you have, I would say, like if you have a monopoly and you can treat people bad and people still come, probably the truth is the opposite is also true. That's like if you have a lot of competition, you need to have a killer quality of service to actually retain and attract new customers. So it's kind of a straightforward, I would say. And NPS, I think the one thing that I've learned, and is my own thinking, a lot of the things that I say here today is really my opinion, so don't take it as, but I think a lot about NPS in a way as like, it's we normally see pictures of NPS, right? So our customers now has, I don't know, we have a 60 score, that's 60, and that's great. But the way I would like to see that's more as a dynamic, is like waves, right? Because suddenly my car subscription to you is a fantastic deal, but suddenly you have a new kid at home, and then the car is small, so then it doesn't fit anymore, or it's not good for that. So your life has changed, and then the way you perceive our value is different. Also, not actually we're not giving a great value to you anymore. So if I ask you tomorrow or that day, then something has changed, or maybe there's a competitor who puts the price really low, and then you don't feel that you have a great deal anymore. So it's very dynamic.
That's the thing with Net Promoting Score for me too. It's not that dynamic. So if you have like if you're in a very competitive market, or you're in the lifetime value game like we are with software or your product to subscription product, you need a little bit more information to make decisions and even to increment your value for your customers. There's another metric from one of our customers, actually, their company is called Worthex, and they provide this Worthex number. It's a metric too. It's similar to the NPS, but it relates to how the customer perceives your value, if they find it still worth it or not. And one of the cases that they include, it's even on their website, super interesting. They say, oh, remember BlackBerry? When they went down, their NPS was booming. Yeah. And that's tricky with NPS, right? Because people can be satisfied, but that doesn't mean they will stick around. No. So yeah, that's a thinker right there. There's another question. Yes,
I think like one thing that I think you can see, it's like take that as an indicator, and also really dig into the qualitative questions. Like really try to understand what really, if you have a low NPS, really try to understand. And would I be a CEO?
Just a starting point. Definitely.
Yes. And would I be a CEO of any company nowadays, I would put my product team responsible for customer support, because from my own experiences, like marketing and product teams, they have so much to learn if they would actually be the ones running the customer support and understanding how customers are complaining every day about what, because they have the power actually to act upon that marketing by attracting through the right communication, explaining what is the product, and product to actually make the product that people really want, so that works. And sometimes the loop is not working. It's like two different silos in the organization, and one is just trying to put down the fire, and the other is trying to fix something. And then sometimes they talk, but they don't have the backlogs that they share. So it's quite in my mind, it doesn't.
But in a way, the growth team also works as a glue, doesn't it, between all of these teams, or at least it could work as a glue, bringing all of this data and experimenting around all of the. And I will get to the pirate funnel with you pretty soon. We have questions about that, but experimenting on all the pirate funnel and all of the points, the customer journey, we can say. And with that, involving marketing, involving sales, involving products, and making everyone work together, or at least targeting a same metric, the North Star metric. So definitely one way to bring that glue is to experiment around and have the buy-in from all of these teams.
Absolutely, and yeah, that's one of the key, how to say, like key values of having a growth team, right? Is that they have this holistic kind of thing that actually finds value here and drag it to, like can and through experimentation, not through opinions. I think that's the most important. Yeah, but yes, we're gonna go there. But I think it's
definitely we'll get there. Let me just ask Guillermo Garcia asks, as a product owner of a free solution to recruit machine operators, how can I make the shift to freemium or start charging for some features? So what I get here from Guilherme is that he's already has the offer, he has a product in the market, but he hasn't started charging for this product yet. Have you been in this situation before? And if yes, how did you deal with that?
I've been kind of there a few times, and I'm currently helping a couple of friends of mine who are in this situation actually. And so what can I say? I think with innovation, one thing that we have learned is like there are things that first of all, who is your customer, right? Like who is your customer? Like is the person who's actually consuming your information or the service, or actually maybe it's advertisers, so then you want to have this community or whatever very strongly, and then someone else is paying for that, so define that is true. So by defining that, you understand what's the value that you're building and that you are delivering. And I think monetization, by the end of the day, it's really just about value exchange, not just, but it is about value exchange. So you are offering something, and then you want to have a financial value as an exchange, and you're giving some other kind of value to the customer. So understand what is this value that we're giving. That's how I would start. Then I would understand who is this customer. Then I would go to understand, okay, I mean, is there any other competitors doing the same? Because maybe the business model is already proved then. So you just need to apply the same and do better. Or if it's a completely new thing, then you need to figure out how to monetize that. Then I would see like, okay, what's the thing that you're saving? Is it time? Is it like money back to the customer? Is it just like a strategic information? Or is this a tool that makes the work more efficient? If it is a tool that makes my work more efficient, how much would it cost for them to not have that tool? Then I would kind of find benchmarks on that. But this kind of thinking, like what's defining that amount of value? There must be value there. And willingness to pay then. Some business people are not willing to pay. It doesn't matter how much value we're creating, but it's like if you're building meals nowadays, I mean, maybe some people are willing to pay some kind of a very specific meals, or like I know that like the information I think I pay, and they do like tech startup things. So there is a kind of segmented and quite high value there, and it's kind of exclusive. But other than that, it's not super niche. Then maybe it might be hard to monetize. So understand if what you are giving as a value is something that people are actually expecting to pay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you might be extra. Yeah.
And I would just add that he asks about freemium versus charging, but actually freemium is not opposed to charging. Freemium is a channel of acquisition, part of a product-led growth strategy. So even if you're charging, you can have a free channel for people to come in and use a certain amount of that product or service, and then come in as paying customers if they see the value. So it's more like an acquisition channel, if you think of freemium, than a monetization strategy. So that's something to be aware as well. You can use freemium, and you can only use freemium if you have a premium
exactly
strategy behind it, right? Yeah.
yes.
Otherwise,
Very
it's
good
just
point.
giving things for free.
Yes.
And another question also from Guilherme that is really interesting, and it ties to what we were discussing before. He asks your advice for setting a growth culture or starting a growth team in a 100 years old corporation.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Loaded question, yes.
Yeah. No, but that's a great question, because that's how I go to sleep every night. I'm thinking. Because as we spoke, like, okay, I would just put straightforward what I think based on my own opinions and experience again. So feel free to maybe not follow any of that. So I would say start small, focus in a very specific unit or problem or a product that you want to solve, or a product you want to sell, let's say. But start small, because if he's 100 years old kind of company, probably is quite big. Probably there's a lot of legacy. Probably there's a lot of politics. There is a lot of things there, and you don't try to go against everything at once. You are not there to change everything. You're there to kind of learn the culture and try to absorb what is good in that culture and try to influence a little bit where you see that you have, where you can add value. So to add value, start small, find something there, and start just eating around. Then I would suggest you to start small where data is. That's crucial, I think, for growth hacking mentality.
Definitely.
Is like you don't want to go to meetings with opinions and then hear other opinions, and then there will be the hierarchical kind of situation, and then you just need to suck in all those opinions. And no, go where you have data, so then you always have something to back you up, and you save so much time, and you keep away from the politics.
And a starting point for ideas even, right? Because data
Exactly.
will feed you the ideas or of where to start.
Absolutely that. So if you can start there and then like learn the business, it's so important that, I mean, you read a lot about growth hacking, and then there's always people asking like, okay, what's the secret for doing that to get more customers through that? And all of that reminds me a lot of like, for instance, when I was producing music, that was like, oh, you know what, if you want to have a hit, like a Billboard 100, all the songs have the phrase you. So your song has to have the lyrics, and you need to refer to you, or like you need to have a major chord to start. There's so many of those rules that people come up with. Every new single that goes out, suddenly there's something new there, and no one could predict before. But after it's out, everybody has analysis to explain why. And I feel that the growth hack is going through the same direction sometimes, where people try to find the shortcuts, the silver bullets, and stay away from that. Read the company, understand the company, and try to see where you can actually, maybe I can increase conversion here, or maybe I can actually make more effective this thing or that thing. So distraction will just make you more distracted. Run experiments a lot. Simple, small, just very small things. You're in a meeting, you have 10 people discussing about the process. Just ask, okay, who from here think that's the right way? Who from here thinks that's the right way? Write it down and make a small graph of that. Okay, 30% of people think that way, 70% think that way. That's a way to actually understand data and understand how to make decisions. So it's a small experiment, but okay, that's a terrible example. We're trying to say is like, you can start very small for very silly things, but actually you foster some sort of a way of thinking in people, and then people start to actually follow through those things, and actually you're gonna learn a lot. So it's and present your stuff to more people than your boss. It's very important, because your manager probably has it's a lot of things happening, and then he or she will always be seen from that angle, that perspective. And if you're interested in doing growth, probably you have a more holistic kind of view, and it can be quite political for you to come and say like, hey, maybe we can do that thing, but that thing is not in your area, and then it means that your manager will need to step in someone else's area. So just build relations in your network with other managers or other people around, and show stuff that you're testing or thinking. Never underestimate that maybe there will be someone else that will be your sponsor. It's not directly in your department, but people are maybe searching for people like you to actually run stuff and to learn stuff.
That's great. Yeah.
That's the thing that I've learned in Volvo. Yeah. And I have one last thing. Is like listen a lot to the old people in the company, because they have been there for quite a long time. They don't know the trend awards. They don't know what is even conversion. Sometimes they don't know anything about data, but they know a lot about the customer and the business. And there's so much value in that. So be humble. Don't be like, oh yeah, I know better than you because we know data. No, just and write down, because those are hypotheses. They will have a lot of opinions. So don't take those opinions as like something against you, or like, oh, but you don't know anything, what you're saying. I will think about that, right? Maybe there's something there. So this is my, that's how I've learned to navigate, and for me, it's working well, I would say. It's not perfect, but it's well. You learn a lot.
All great suggestions. Yeah, thanks so much, Guilherme, for these. And Arwen asked a follow-up question to that. What is your 1 to 3 recommended playbook for setting up a growth team?
The playbooks, yeah, that's tricky, right? So I think, like, I don't know, maybe you know that better than me, Emilia, for sure you know, but like you guys at growthhackers.com just released the Enterprise Growth Playbook. I have it with me here from Andy Boyd, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's fantastic. For me, it was like, hallelujah, I found someone who understands my pain here, because it's for enterprise, it's not for startups. Again, when you're a startup, your CMO sits there, your CEO sits here, your CTO sits here, you all talk the whole time together. Oh, let's test that. Yeah, test this. And you have data everywhere. It's like flowing. Like, when you're in a corporation with 40,000 people, it doesn't work this way. So I think his playbook is fantastic. So definitely is my number 1 recommended there.
I will include the link here on the comments on the video for everyone that is watching. And actually, Andy will be with us September 2nd. So we have Growth Hackers Conference coming up September 1st and September 2nd. On September 2nd, Andy will be hosting a masterclass on how to put this playbook into practice. So it will be super. Yeah. And the tickets for the first day are still for free up until July 31st. So you can go to growthhackersconference.com, get your tickets for the first day, upgrade for the second day. We also have some offerings there, and watch Andy's masterclass. I'm certainly looking forward to that.
I can definitely. I mean, I really enjoyed the reading, and I think it kind of, I connected a lot to all of the things that he said. So yes, I would recommend definitely to someone to watch his keynote. Then my second one is a book that I'm reading now in the summer. So I have 2 kids, so it's going slowly, but it's also nice because then I go processing. But it's a book from Ben Horowitz, and What You Do Is Who You Are. So how to create your business culture. It's fantastic. For me, it's been like boom, like it's so down to, and the way he writes and everything. So it's like it's a masterclass. One has to read if you're building a team, or if you want to build a team, or if you even a family.
Very on time.
Yeah,
probably on time. It talks about culture in any situation, and for growth, it also applies. I agree. His first book, Hard Things About Hard Things, is also a must. Especially if if you're implementing something new, if you're running a team or a company, you go through some hard times. Everyone goes through some hard times. And he talks about it's very difficult not to relate. So if you're entrepreneurial in some level, you will relate to that. So definitely, it's a good reminder, Guilherme, of these two, the ebook from Andy and the newest book from Ben Horowitz. Thanks for that. We also got some.
I have sorry, Emilia. I have a third one, because this one is very important for me also. I have and it's a small paper. You can find it online, and there is a book after. But it's just because for me was this but it's kind of a more deep into psychology. But I think if you are trying to understand consumers' mind and people's mind, you need to understand habits. And then if you want to understand habits, you need to read BJ Fogg's. I think he has a paper where he explained his very simple formula of like the behavior model. But also he just launched a book called Tiny Habits, the small changes that change everything. And I'm a big fan of BJ Fogg. I think he's probably the most underrated, although he's like a superstar, but I still think he's underrated in a sense that's like everything I seen after getting to know his method, everything I'm doing nowadays, I kind of, that actually is. So it's really a mind bending, very simple theory that he has, and you can apply for so many situations, and it's a great guy. So I definitely suggest everyone to pay attention to this one also.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll write that down, all of that, so people can look them afterwards. And actually, the next question is tied to that, your third suggestion, that is from Gaurav. How do you see consumer marketing evolve in 5 years from now? So based on all of your researches, what are you seeing right now?
I think if you wanna, that's a great question. I think if you wanna see how marketing will go for the next 5 years, look back to the last 10, and you're gonna see the trend line. I find it very straightforward. It's like brutal competence shift. Like a lot of people who has been working with marketing in the more, what we would call then the creative way nowadays, which is kind of weird because it's just super creative, but it's more like that was not data driven. That has been going through, like understanding a lot of gut feelings, a lot of empathy, understanding the customers, but not truly being able to capture data because of lack of tracking, actually, mainly. So you put a TV ad and a radio ad, and then you just see what's happening. And nowadays, we can track those things. So we are more and more getting, in all the mediums, more and more capabilities of tracking and understanding those things. So with that comes this requirement that the marketing professionals will need to understand data analytics and all of those things. So it's a brutal shift of competence for some people. I think for the more young ones, maybe that was part of default from the learning. But there is an old generation, not so old, but still, that actually is quite challenging to do such a big shift. So it's a lot of discomfort to actually change so much, but that will happen more and more, and it will be more evident for the next years. I would say automation will take over abruptly, I feel, with AI. The more I'm reading, the more I'm testing new tools, it's like, whoa, what's happening here? So I would say it's just another trend that is just keep going. So again, better tracking means like agencies, like media agencies, you're going to start understanding better what's happening there in that black box, and then probably there will be less risk takers. Because this is my guess, because I feel that like it becomes quite. One thing I've learned when I was trying to sell media for big media agencies, and when I was a small startup, is like if you're in a media agency, you can spend, I don't know, like millions on Facebook, which is a kind of very established company. And if you do a little bit wrong here or there in a campaign, etc., no one complains, right? Because it's Facebook. But if you dare to invest, I don't know, $1,000 in a small startup that no one knows, but you think is super hot, super exciting, good audience, good tracking, etc., and suddenly no one likes that, then you're screwed. Because you took a risk there, and no one knows that. So you don't want to take that risk, right? Because if you're media, you just want to keep the account nice. You have, so the accountability there is different from if you own actually the company. So I think there will be less and less maybe space for that. So there will be more like a space maybe for agglomerators and those things. But this is me speculating. So but yes, I see that as another way. And then I think opportunity for paid marketing would be super crowded, I would expect. So, I mean, it's already super crowded, so CPMs will keep going high. So I would say that people will need to find more creative ways, and then boom, product will become the thing. I think is already the thing. You have companies like Tesla, for instance, that's their budget goes in product, and they do great products also. So Volvo does also great products and great marketing. So then, but I would say like product will probably more and more dragging budget from marketing, and I would expect then that to be kind of the new norm. That there will be, of course, growth is there, that blurry gray zone that's like marketing, sales, product, and etc. But it seems that something will happen a lot in this conversion there, depending on the business, of course. Some business cannot afford that, some business not. But I would say product and marketing will more and more get there, and more automation and a lot.
That's what we're already seeing in the software industry with product-led growth. Definitely. Yes. You mentioned Tesla, but I see that in so many products that we use on a daily basis. That the product is the way you grow. The product is your best advertisement. Is how people can use, and word of mouth right now works wonders in helping people unlock some paid features by referring others. And I mean, it's old, but it's also in a new way that we're using all of these old techniques. And I can definitely, I was traveling with you as you were describing these 5 years. I was traveling with you, and I was thinking a lot about how AI will also bring the need for people to actually use their creativity in a new way. It's maybe it's a data based creativity, but it's still humans will be a lot more required to experiment and to create something new based on data. AI goes a long way, but it's still a machine, right? Humans understand humans much better than a machine would, and that won't change within 5 years, maybe 50 years, but within 5 years, I don't think so.
Let's hope not. No, but I think you're right there. And you know, like by the end of the day, it's like I am so more and more keen to that thing. Like, if you do great products nowadays, information just flows, right? And the trend is that we keep flowing freely more and more and more. So if you just focus on doing great products, people will get to know your great product. And if you have the right offer, that's a thing that we have at some point today. I hope we're going to have the space to talk about what offer becomes, what is product market fit, and what I now call offer market fit. Because but I will go another time that. But if you have a great offer and a great product there, things will just naturally start happening, because nowadays people are connected, people are talking. So yeah, a lot of examples, as I said, is out there.
Please go into that. I think we do have other questions around that, but please go a little bit into that. Can you expand on offer market fit?
Yeah, so it's a term that I've been to when I joined my current team. It's like, okay, what's our product here? Our product is a car. And our car exists for hundreds of years, and there will be cars coming, and there is a market for that. Yes, there is a market fit for this specific car segment, model, and etc. And I cannot tweak a car. You know, like if I work at Spotify or at, I don't know, whatever other tech company, I can maybe tweak my product and deploy it on over the air, and it just works. And then I have a new version. But a car, it takes, I don't know, 7 years to plan that. And I know that we will soon, we have now over-the-air updates for cars, and you can tweak a thing here or there, but it's very hard to tweak the product. And the fit for the product is there. But then it comes the tweaks you can do in the commercial side, which is like the offer itself. So it's a car, but you can have this car through lease, you can have this car through, you can pay it like full cash, or you can now have a subscription of the car. So the product itself, you understand that people want, people love. But how are you going to have access to that car? The business model behind that. That's what I call the offer. And so why maybe one can argue still, and that's the thing that it goes back and forth in my mind. It's like, okay, but then if you offer a subscription, that's a new product. And then if you offer a cash, that's another product. Although in my mind, the product is the physical thing, because I'm talking about something tangible, which is the car. So I'm going back and forth on that. But when you abstract to an offer level, then you understand that the same product can have a lot of different performance levels depending on how you tweak the offer. So if I have a car with a price level X, can be, I don't know, the level can be absolutely different from the same car, everything with just a small tweak in the price. But the price is straightforward and super obvious. But what happens when you have maybe different business model, subscription versus lease? So it's just a condition, the terms and conditions there that you're tweaking a little bit, you understand? So you start playing around and you start building these kind of different puzzles of like, what is the perfect offer for that product? And then you experiment, and then suddenly you find, whoa, this one works. So then I have the right offer for that product. So it's the offer market fit. That's how I was imagining that. It's the same product again, but it's just the conditions that I'm building, the package, the marketing kind of thing. But you know, like, so I think for when you go more and more into tangible cars, then you're going to see more of that. But it's a way of thinking. So I don't think I can take it full credits on this one. but it's I mean, like it's just like, for me, it gets way easier to understand that, okay, I have this car and I can do completely different offers with that.
But that can be used in so many industries. It's
absolutely,
definitely, that can bring many experimentation to any traditional product-led industry as well, especially for industries with manufacturing that you cannot change within a year. It would take at least a few years to change anything product-wise. So definitely that's a great way to speed things up in a way that you can follow the market speed and not be, late to any trends. Or that's super interesting. There's another question that I think we can tie to that one. It's from someone whose startup is using the Pirate Funnel. So they are asking who's in charge of setting the product vision in that case. And that's a great one. And is it a job for the activation team in that case? And should they use this Pirate Funnel for the growth and marketing team, or have them take charge of the product metrics? So how to organize all the teams? We talked a little bit about that prior to these questions. So how do you organize your Pirate metrics, and who's in charge of what?
That is super tricky. That's my only answer to you. It's like, it's very, it's so down to each organization, right? I mean, one thing is like, okay, we're starting a startup, so you have blank sheets, so you can design everything, and then you can, of course, hopefully you can start designing by the Pirate Funnel, and then you kind of tweak into your own funnel based on your products and your needs and etc. But then when you go to a company that has been operating a certain way for many, many years, then you already have like these big, strong departments who are running the way they are running, and suddenly, I'm not saying there's other departments that are like that, but maybe, let's say, sales and marketing, they are one thing, and then revenue. So let's say retention is part of a completely different thing, and then whoever owns retention also owns, I don't know, something else. So it gets very tricky. So I would say like that there is no right and wrong to who sets the product vision. I would just hope that is someone who actually can think long term and can have a lot of empathy for the customers, who understands what really is the customer's need. So normally it's a CEO who actually starts, who has this vision, and then it's translated down to who is the chief product officer, and then this person normally has a lot of information from the customers, but also from the technical side and etc. But I would just hope there is someone who has a long-term perspective and vision on that, and also understands the business, but really understands the customer. I think that's the most important thing. And activation team, I think the activation team, in my mind, they are so down to, it's quite tricky because it's an organism, so they need to feedback who is doing the product to actually, who is doing the product, understand that, okay, if I tweak this or that, then it's increasing my conversion in activation, etc. But maybe the activation team is not the one who is defining who is doing the product or the vision of how the product should be. But is a common exercise. But someone, if there must be someone, I would say someone more really in the top, have the holistic approach and view from the customer first, and then the business perspective, and everything else. Yeah. Maybe.
Wow. Yeah, and definitely that's something that if you're starting off and you're creating your own team, you're hiring people, you can organize everything around that. But usually, and what we see the most in companies where growth is being learned and the growth methodology is transforming how innovation is done, is that you get to tie teams that already existed to those metrics and to those to the funnel. So I think we have time for 2 more questions. So the next one is actually on this goal. How do you structure your goals? How do you structure your objectives to achieve those major goals? And I think the funnel is actually a way to translate those goals in different levers of growth, right? But the first step would be to have everyone in the team or in the company looking towards the same objectives, the same goal. And how do you do that?
how do you start, right? This is, yeah, it's very tricky, I would say. Everything always remains tricky, but what I would say is, like, there is no right or wrong, right? So every organization will have their own, but definitely you wanna have a goal that actually makes sense. So, and what actually makes sense is, like, I'm quite a big fan of not having these kind of big, broad targets that still make sense. Let's say, okay, you want to have more subscribers, great. You do subscription, you want to have more subscribers, or like active customers, great. But it's also quite obvious, and then it doesn't really give me the direction. So I would have more of an inspiration or higher level, but I will also have a target made together. There's something that is very, very specific and very reachable, and that can give me direction. So I know if I choose from A or B because of that direction. So let's say we want to, I don't know, increase conversion rate by X%. Then I know that whatever I'm tweaking here, I should focus in conversion rate right now. I should not focus in maybe retention. So acquisition part, right? Things like that. But then how do you start? I think that's what's also right. One thing that can happen also when you want to set up like goals and objectives, one thing that I've learned is, like, for new things, it's always tricky because you don't have historical data and you don't have benchmarks. And then how can we set up these if we don't know what it is? And I have spent so many many hours sometimes of trying to, okay, we have, this new team, and then we need to define metrics, but we don't know. And then I would spend a lot of time trying to find, Googling or researching or asking, and then now I finally realized that, you know what, guesstimate it. Say we're gonna do X, and then you run, and then you're gonna say, oh, we didn't do X. Then now you have a benchmark. You had the terrible wrong estimation at the start. Fine, now you have a benchmark. Now you're gonna from that to build upon that. So, but this is more like when you start something in the organization. So if you're starting, like, what's the sales target, or what is the conversion target, or what is whatever, just start, and then after you put up the metrics to try to push it up. But that's a thing that took me a while to simple, but it takes forever.
Otherwise we're always looking for a benchmark, and sometimes this benchmark are not like quite fit to what we are looking for, or actually the potential of the business. And definitely, I like that idea too, of start measuring first. After you measure, you get a grasp of what you have and the situation you're in at that moment, and start to understand where you should be to achieve those bigger goals. And then you set the objectives, and you set the experiments around those objectives. I really like that idea. And there's one last question. Our time is almost up.
Almost there, right?
It comes from Laura Lynn. You mentioned on your bio a little bit about the T-shaped marketing model, and how you perceive it. So Laura Lynn asks, regarding the T-shaped marketing model, what shape of marketer are you?
I don't really know. It's kind of existential to me, because I think I love doing. I think I'm more in the creative side, but I'm also very in the analytic side. So it's this kind of a broader kind of marketing. But I'm very data driven in my decisions. But I am very, very in love with design. So it's kind of around that area. I'm terrible in coding and understanding coding. So I know just a little bit enough to understand what I don't like, and to ask people and make myself, how to say, don't look so ashamed in front of developers when they're having talks and they're explaining the things to me. Is so I know what is back end, front end, and stuff, and when they deploy it. But I don't know much in the technical side as much as I maybe would like to. So it's an area that I'm actually trying to educate myself. So the T-shaped marketing model that I meant is more like I think Google Analytics is the level that I know about analytics and do cohorts and those things. And then I like a lot to also sometimes just sit down and prototype ideas in apps and use Sketch, etc. So I'm more in this area. But I don't know if that's what he's referring to, but this is more like where I want to leave on. But one thing that I want to give as a suggestion to everyone in this community as the last thing is like there is tons of great quality online courses where you have Corona and etc. that's like popping up, where you can actually build up your capability in such a nice and comfortable way that is better than maybe a lot of course out there. So I would say that my T-shaped model right now probably be very different for the next 1 year. So because of those things. So
that's
ask me
the
again.
key, right? That's the key. Yeah, for growth in all ways, especially our own growth, is to keep moving and keep learning and keep pushing ourselves and experimenting around what we know and what we want to know next, what we want to learn next. So thanks so much, Guilherme. It was such a pleasure to have you here this last hour. I mean, it's a blur for me because I thought it was like 5 minutes and it's an hour. We're just here chatting and talking. It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much. We did not go through all of the questions. Let me say that. So if you ask a question to Guilherme and it was not answered for some reason, you can always reach out to him on our community, reach out to him on Twitter and other channels, and ask him in person during the Growth Hackers Conference, because Guilherme will be there, right? During the conference, we will have networking experiences, and people can come up to you and chat and ask their questions again. So thanks so much for coming here. It was great to have you, and hopefully we'll see each other next during the conference and on.
Absolutely, Mia. So thank you so much again for the opportunity. It's fantastic to be in this community and to share this knowledge and also to read a lot. So everyone watching, thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed as much as I have enjoyed. And please reach out, let's talk, and let's be friends and get to know each other. I think it's fantastic to my wife today told me, like, oh, it's so nice, you're so privileged, you're going to have the opportunity to finally talk to people who actually like the same thing that you like a lot. I said, yes,
true.
It would be all there.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, that's something that all of us in the community, we can always we have that every day, and it's a privilege. Yeah, I'm very grateful for that. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.